A whole lot of hullabaloo about nothing. That's my overall take on Katie Proudfoot's interview, part 1, with Fox 17 News, except for that one thing. Welcome to Bed Crime Stories. I'm your host, T, and it's hump day. We are halfway to the weekend. Yes. Here's what I observed in this short interview, part 1. Sebastian's mother, Katie Proudfoot, doesn't look like she's living her best life. She looks puffy, and I think it goes beyond puffy eyes from crying. Has she been doing some unhealthy habits to deal with all the stress? I mean, no matter what happened to Sebastian, whether she was part of a conspiracy to rid herself of a sometimes troublesome autistic teenage son, or whether he walked out of the house of his own accord, or whether somebody nabbed him when he was outside, it's gonna take a toll on the mother. If Katie's innocent of wrongdoing, then she's dealing with the loss of her only biological child. If she was involved, she's been the subject of a lot of speculation and a lot of digging up of her personal life. I mean, we know things about her that most people would not want exposed to the world. Bottom line, Katie isn't the picture of a vibrant Southern mom living a happy, contented life. She's puffy, her cheeks are mottled and red, and her eyes looked drained of vibrancy. However, I have to add that I do feel like she's learned how to present herself in front of the camera after a year now. She now talks with animation about Sebastian. She mentions how much she loves him. She talks about how much he loved cats and water, and yet we know he had to give up his beloved cats when his stepfather, Chris Proudfoot, married his mother. So what Sebastian loved the most, his animals, his cats, his snakes, were taken away from him. I can't help thinking about Doomsday Mother Lori Vallow taking away little JJ's therapy dog. Remember that? JJ was also on the spectrum, and JJ's mother chose a man over him.
And any chance in the pool.
He loves water. He swims like a fish.
Katie says that Sebastian loves water. That's not what Chris Proudfoot said in an earlier interview. Chris said Sebastian doesn't love water. He's a pool kind of kid. So he likes water, but if it's in a pool. So I'm assuming Sebastian would not dip a toe in a lake, a river, or a retention pond. Here's something the deception detective likely noticed. When talking about Sebastian's birthday, Katie appears to catch herself. Check it out.
Sebastian also missed his birthday.
December 7th. He turned 16, and he should be home for that.
But
did you hear that? Katie paused, reflected, and then said, quote, December 7th, he would've. She then catches herself because would've implies that Sebastian may not be alive. So she restates it. He turned 16 and he should be home for that. Katie also mentions that she loves Sebastian, and I noticed that she said, I love him, not we love him, as in she and her husband, Chris Proudfoot. To me, that's notable. What's also interesting is that she had an entire meal at the Texas Roadhouse restaurant with Sebastian to talk to him, but instead she looked at her cell phone. She took a few pictures of him, and then she looked around the room. Katie also vows to keep looking for Sebastian, but let's remember, this is the mother who left the home that Sebastian disappeared from. And when she was questioned about leaving it, she said it didn't matter because Sebastian could be anywhere by now. And we haven't seen Chris and Katie Proudfoot searching. Are they doing it? Has anybody seen them out there, boots on the ground? Katie had to pause and think again when she described what happened when she went to wake up Sebastian. To me, that looks like she's having to think about what she's going to say. She has to be careful with her word choices. For some reason, this part of her story, where she goes to wake up Sebastian, always feels to me like it's something where she feels she has to be particularly meticulous. There's a certain hesitation when she talks about it. And when asked, what do you think happened to Sebastian? Katie said she thinks a million different things every day, but ultimately she says she doesn't know. Personally, I don't believe her. I want to believe her, but I just don't. She's had 12 months, by the way, to learn what to say and how to appear on camera.
What do you believe happened to Sebastian?
Unfortunately, over the last year, I have thought every single day, night, every moment of every possibility of something that could happen to him, where he could have gone, if he had gone with someone, if someone took him willingly, unwillingly, if he'd run away and got lost, if he'd a million different things. And unfortunately, I don't know.
But
Lie detectors
Yes,
for yourself.
and my husband.
which Katie says they passed. We don't know what investigators say about the test, but Katie says they have searched her home.
Thoroughly, many times. Cadavers, searchers.
What do police tell you at this point? What do they think?
Unfortunately, that they have zero evidence.
Zero trace of the boy with a smile, especially, Katie says, on her own.
I would just like to tell my son that I love him and to know that we are never going to stop searching.
So a lost smile can be found.
Then the newly released to the public security camera footage of a mysterious figure a couple hundred yards from the Proudfoot home came up. That figure was in the hood early on the morning of Monday, February 26, when Sebastian vanished. The figure was on the security camera footage at 12:17 a.m. to be exact. The police have said that video footage has no relevance to the case. I think Katie and Chris Proudfoot were hoping that this footage, which private investigator Steve Fisher said could be a break in the case, would captivate us and distract us and maybe convince us that Sebastian did leave on his own and that that's him at 12:17 a.m. Steve Fisher said that he thinks the mysterious figure is hiding behind a car, trying to hide from a dog walker who was also out at that hour. But the police seem to be saying they know who that person is, and it's no one doing anything nefarious. But of course, they haven't named who the person is, and Chris and Katie Proudfoot want to know. Katie mentioned that her and Chris's house was searched multiple times by dogs, including cadaver dogs. To me, if that's true, it may suggest that Sebastian either never made it back to the house, despite what everybody keeps saying, that there's a figure taking out the garbage and that is Sebastian, or that he was medicated, not unalived inside the house, and then carried out, because it sounds like the scent of death was not detected by those cadaver dogs inside the house. It's also possible that Sebastian walked out alive. The way, I have to say, don't you think it's a bit cray-cray for anybody to think that Sebastian, after having the very best day of his life, homemade breakfast, calls with relatives, a colossal popcorn at BJ's, bowling, and then finally a salmon dinner at the Texas Roadhouse. Why would he decide that night to run away? I mean, he lived his best life that day. Life was good for him that day, so I doubt he would have picked that particular dark night in February to head out alone into the night, barefoot, without his phone, without a coat. So I'm sorry, Katie can cry, she can do her deep sighs and take deep breaths. I'm not buying it, but that's just my opinion. She was home with Sebastian that night. If anyone knows what happened to him, it would be her. She was at ground zero when whatever happened, happened. Now, instead, she now describes that night as a calm one. Take a listen.
It's a normal night.
It was a normal night. It was a calm night.
That turned tumultuous by the next morning.
It was when I went in his room and he wasn't there. He wasn't in his bed.
Katie says she frantically searched the house and drove around the neighborhood at 6:30 a.m. until she and Sebastian's stepfather, who says he was away for work at the time, called police.
There were quite a bit of people that were, sending some very threatening and hateful messages to us.
What would you say to those people?
Just stop.
Very interesting new word for her to introduce into the narrative. Calm is the opposite of a ruckus, right? The opposite of a plot to do away with a child that she and her husband wanted out of their home. I think that evening at home was anything but calm. Katie also talked about people threatening her and Chris. But guess what, Katie? A lot of searchers have received threats as well. Who would do that and why? When a family wants their missing loved one found, they don't threaten the people who are trying to help them find that person. That's all for today, and I'll see you next time on Bed Crime Stories. Love you guys. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Please consider a membership or perhaps a super thanks. And I'll see you next time.